So it's interesting to me that a lot of people are freaking out about what's going on. You got a lot of patriot people screaming Trump. You got people fighting over the election and just really kind of dumb stuff, in my opinion. There's no fight about anything. That's the entire reason we're in this mess is because of fighting and war. That's how it's perpetuated. Okay, the human slavery mechanism is very real. Starts at birth. Um, it's been proven over and over and over for those people who are maybe new to such things, such concepts. The human slavery concept is thousands of years old. It is what is going on right now in the world. They're just reorganizing the plantation, the Garden of Eden. They're just, reorganizing the garden. Um, a lot of it could really easily be solved if people would open their mind and understand how the whole mechanism is put together to begin with. Nowadays, it's a hidden slavery where before slavery was just out in the open. Now it's hidden slavery. It starts with the registration of our labor and promise of all our property at birth. You got banks that have taken over every country. They have bought up all the resources on the earth, and they piecemeal it out to us, slaves. It's an interesting construct, and how they've gotten away with doing it over however many thousands of years, especially now. But the really interesting part is, to come out of slavery is to come out of debt, because every country's insolvent. They've all been bankrupted by the banks, and the banks own them. I think this is pretty common knowledge for a lot of us, although there's still a majority of people out there that have no clue this is how things are functioning. So it's interesting to see that there are a lot of people moving to, what they claim their sovereignty and things like that. Although I disagree with sovereignty, because there's only one sovereign, and that's God, and we are co-heirs to that kingdom, but we are not in essence sovereign beings, and states and countries are less sovereign than we because they're not alive. There's only one sovereign, and that's the creator of all that is. So with that said, a lot of these groups I see are like secured party creditor type stuff, exclusive equity. For those of you that understand what I'm talking about, you've probably been around a little bit. It's usually these groups that profess to have, an answer, which it's never really a solid answer. It's a hit or miss answer to legal matters, if you will, bigger problems. There's one root issue, and the root issue is the registration of our souls. The contract at birth to be in forever in debt, forever in sin. It's really easy to understand if you just stop trying to look at the mechanics of everything and look at the principles of everything. You have insolvent countries. The United States of America that's the one that cracks me up the most, because people still believe in a constitution, and that there was a bunch of dudes that came from Europe over here, and we're going to create a government where everybody was free, and they were in control of their government. Like, it's such a sham, it's not even funny. And all you have to do is read history to find that out. The Constitution itself is a bankruptcy document. It is a bankruptcy charter. It has parties and property, the two main things needed for a trust to be formed, okay? And it also has intent and purpose. Just read the preamble. It's a trust, and the trust is set up not for you, the people, but for we, the people. We, the people of the United States, is not you, the people that live on the land of North America. That's not you. That's a different people. It had nothing to do with making sure people were free. It had everything to do with banking and to make sure that the new organization being put together was able to function in world commerce. Again, just read history. This is not hard stuff to grasp, and it's not hard stuff to find. Most of the constitutional signers were Masons, high order Masons, Freemasonry. A lot of them, their views were that the Articles of Confederation were too restrictive, because, they wouldn't allow the government to tax us. They didn't want other countries to come in and basically mess with us in commerce. They were very protective, the Articles of Confederation, which formed the Federation of the States, styled as the United States of America. The United States comes in, and the United States is now a management company for the United States of America. Two different things, two different places, okay, two different jurisdictions. The whole thing's a con. All right. The whole Declaration of Independence and the Revolutionary War, that was a con. I mean, it's very easy to see. Just go back in history and read it. Okay, look at the Paris Peace Treaty of 1783 after the war. All right, and you will see that Ben Franklin, John Jay, and John Adams signed on that document, which says clearly that the Prince of the King of Britain, King George, was also the Prince of France, England, and Ireland. So if we paid the French, allegedly, to help us fight for our freedom against the England, and England essentially owned the French army, how does that even add up? You didn't get a bunch of free dudes over here that were free men with muskets and pitchforks that won that war. They had to use France to do it. They had to pay for that. That put them in debt. So they're forever in debt. So the whole thing starts off in debt. It's always debt. That's how the bankers rule everything, of course. And for those of you that are more savvy, you know that this goes back to the Vatican, and that they control all the money and all that stuff. And it's one big convoluted mess. But the bottom line is everyone is in debt, because that's all there is debt. So they give you a certificate, a share certificate in the debt mechanism. That's called your birth certificate. It's like a share certificate, right? So for those that don't understand how the whole birth registration works, it's nothing to do with, obviously for most of the people viewing this video, they know it has nothing to do with census or anything else. What it has to do is securing government financially. All right, that's what it do. That's why you get a Social Security account, because your securities, your debt contracts are used by the government to fund their organization, to get loans from the bank. That's all the birth registration and everything is about. They can't, here in the United States of America, the 13th Amendment says that the government, remember, the Constitution is nothing more than a set of bylaws, along with the Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation, and the Northwest Ordinance, all working in conjunction with the Constitution, as well as 4 organic documents that the country functions on. Okay, and in those documents, yes, they do have to follow those, but they've written every law and everything underneath of it. So again, here's what cracks me up, with just getting on a side note about the Constitution. There's been many, many court cases that have said the Constitution does not apply to the people. The people are not parties to it. So if every statute, code, and law was created under such a constitution, then how does any of that apply to me if I'm not a party to the original set of bylaws? Hello? It's a simple equation. It's the belief and the brainwashing, all the years of, you can't learn the law because you have to go to law school, or, you're an idiot, you can't learn the law, you have to be an attorney. It's all bullshit. It's not hard to learn the law. The law is very simple. Statutes and codes and man-made law is convoluted for a reason, but you have to contract into that. So anyhow, it's a very simple setup. So the government's broke. They don't have any money. They have to go get loans. Okay. In order to get loans, they had to mortgage off the people's labor and land. This happened here in 1933. Most people are aware of that. And so they mortgaged everything off because they were broke. So they mortgaged off the labor, they mortgaged off the land. The labor was mortgaged off through the registration of birth, where they then have you now in a pledge of security over to the actual bankrupt or insolvent organization of the United States. The United States is insolvent. So they've always been insolvent because the bank has always controlled the money. So there's some variables in that. But the bottom line is today that they take those registrations and they are securities. They are assets for the government to get a loan with. So what happens in a trust situation is, if a trust has a debtor, in other words, if a trust has loaned money out to someone, that loan, that security, that contract becomes a financial asset, because eventually the person that's loaned the money is going to pay the trust back that loaned them, however much money plus interest. So they can use that document, that loan document, whatever it is. Okay, if it's a registration, it's a security. Just look up the Securities Act in 1933. Okay, a registration and other paper can be used as securities. Okay, contracts. It's all this is about contracts. So then the government says, okay, well, we've got John Jones over here that was just pledged by his mother and father with all of this, with his asset, pledged the asset of his labor over to us. So now they take that and they go, okay, well, we have an agreement that, they're going to function according to our bylaws and everything, and be part of us because they pledged their security over, which is their body, their labor, their land, everything they'll ever owned, over to the government. So then the government sets up another entity, a registered organization in our name. Most people call it a straw man or a all capital letter name. I call it a straw organization because it's pretty much what it is. It is an organization. And that organization is evidenced by a birth certificate, which is different than a certificate of live birth. A certificate of live birth is, in fact, the organizational certificate showing who the actual owner, who the pledger it actually is. Okay. The certificate, the birth certificate, is the share certificate in the big, large company called the United States, and the certificate of interest, so to speak. So that birth certificate then becomes, it can be a negotiable instrument, because what it's saying is, yes, I can negotiate this certificate in this organization. They have created organizations out of everyone, and those organizations have a insurance policy called you and me. Okay, we're the surety, which called the surety. We agree to pay the debts of that organization should that organization be insolvent. It's always insolvent. It can't not be solvent, because it has no money. It has nothing. There's no money in circulation. There's no money of substance. Any of the money that's created is owned by the bank, is not owned by us, and the instruments are non-negotiable. So we have no money. So even as sureties, we have no money. So what happens, of course, a lot of in a legal process, they're actually attacking the debtor organization created in our likeness, the registered straw organization, not us. And when we go into a legal situation, they are essentially saying, hey, are you going to pay this bill? You're going to pay these charges? Because every code and statute has a charge that we don't see, okay, a financial obligation. So when we go into court to fight these things, it's a losing battle, because fighting, number one, puts you in the wrong jurisdiction. It puts you under the Trading with the Enemy Act, under the Emergency Banking Relief Act. I believe it's Section 2, Paragraph 2. I've got it somewhere, where all the United States citizens were made enemies of the state, basically, or made to be subject to the Trading with the Enemy Act. So when you go into a court and you start fighting, all you're saying is, I'm not going to pay the bill. Sorry, not going to do it. Even if you did want to pay the bill, you don't have any money to pay it. So you're kind of stuck unless you understand how to use instruments and do discharge. All right. And a lot of people make it convoluted, and but they have achieved the discharge process. I have used birth certificates for discharge on many things, criminal, tax, whatever, and and never entered any paper into a court. I don't enter the fight. For me, I enter as the supreme owner of all of it, the solvent one, because I hold silver and gold, and I have bonded my entity, the entity, to be solvent. So now I'm not functioning in bankruptcy with these clowns anymore. I am actually the creditor, which is what we're supposed to be. But if you don't have gold and silver, and you haven't backed up your entity and made a pledge of gold or silver to the entity, to the United States, to indemnify them, you're always a debtor. I don't care if you're doing secured party creditor stuff or not. If you haven't applied any money of substance properly, you're just acting as an executor decentor over the entire organization, meaning you're acting like an executive officer that doesn't have the authority to do that because you're broke. So this is how the whole human slavery ring functions. It functions on bankruptcy. It functions on insolvency. And it's really not a hard thing. I think so many people have tried to crack this over the years. I've been involved with it for 11 years now, and I've gone into courtrooms and tested my theories. I've represented people I don't want to say represented people because we know that's not allowed, but I have represented people's interests for them as appointed power of attorney. And I also have been their counsel in courtrooms next to them, not speaking for them, but there to support them as counsel. So I've tested a lot of this stuff. And I know that it works, so to speak. And I don't want to say that anything works because then we have to talk about what's working. What is it? What are you talking about? What works? What works for what? I don't want to get into that. What I do want to say, though, is that what I am explaining is 100% backed by experiences that I have had and others have had throughout the years. And it really is, man. It's a human slavery thing, and the way out is the way in. That's what I always say. So the way out is saying, I'm not going to be part of these contracts anymore. And how do you do that? Well, you have to become the creditor of the contracts. You have to become the owner. You have to become the superior over all of the contracts, because there's millions of contracts that we've all signed with the government, whether they're express, meaning we sign them and they're in writing, or they're implied by our actions. There's tons and tons of contracts. So there's a way to unwind that. You have to go back to the beginning. The root is the registration of birth. There is no other root illness. So if you're trying to attack these fires that pop up in a legal sense of debt, criminal, whatever, and you're using all these constitutional arguments, exclusive equity, SPC, secured party creditor, A for V, all that garbage, all you're doing is you're just band-aiding the situation. And you may be able to band-aid that situation, but you didn't attack the root. And the root is, I am a child of God, okay? Everything that I create is from me, emanates from me, and I credit governments because they can't function without me. So I am the one in charge, and I'm going to nullify all these contracts by becoming the creditor, okay? So it's really important to understand the mechanics of how it all moves, but it's not that hard. We've made it hard. A lot of us have been studying this stuff for years and gone down all these different trails to try to figure it out. But at the end of the day, we have to look at it as a financial maneuver. So what they're doing right now with the revalue or the reset is to entrap everybody back in. Okay, so let's reset everything. Let's add value back into the system, make everybody believe this is for their good. And when they take the bait that we are offering, they're under our control. Because if I'm issuing you the money, then I am controlling you. So it's all about control of the money. But I've always said this. My theory is if we all stood together at one time and we all became solvent, and it doesn't take much more than a few coins of silver to be solvent. Okay, if we became solvent, we could become our own bank united together. And if we, okay, took our birth certificates and paid them to the order of the United States for, let's just say, $300 million a piece, and there was 1,000 of us or more, probably take about 150,000 of us, we could buy them right out of debt overnight. Okay, because they have to balance the ledger once the creditors come in and issue an instrument to them. They have to balance the ledger, and that means they have to pay the bank with our instruments, and the public debt comes down. The public debt is what holds the United States organization to the bankers. Okay, it's what holds the countries to the bankers, is the public debt. If you issue an instrument, and we've done this, and we have seen announcements made after our instruments were received that, private donees, or, the budget was expanded by the exact amount of the instrument that we a few days prior issued and was received. So we know that when you issue instruments, it brings down the public debt. So if people were to do this, you could literally buy the government out of debt overnight, and then guess who would be in charge? We would, not the bank. Okay, you would knock the bank right out of the mix. But people aren't thinking in terms of finance and banking. They're too worried about voting, COVID, all this other bullshit that doesn't mean a hill of beans. Okay, you have organizations that are created that assume a jurisdiction over people, that trap people in. Okay, they trap people in constantly with these contracts over and over and over. And it's just an organization that is bankrupt or insolvent. And the bankers, in their arrogance, believe that we're too stupid to figure out how to become solvent. Okay, but it's not that hard. We have money of value available. Okay, again, if everybody bought a handful of silver and gold and we all got together and threw it on a community ledger, we're a private bank. I mean, it's really not that hard. And again, you have to organize, you have to be organized. You have to have a set of bylaws. You have to have a community, a society that agrees to do that. So that's what a lot of us are working on. Some of the information can be found on the website that I've created with some others called REM. It's REM Private Management is the organization, but the website is privateestatetrust.org, all spelled out. I am moving forward to help people. I'm not doing it for free, so don't expect to go to my website and get a handout. There's no membership to my website or anything like that. Actually, I keep saying my website. It's not my website. And the processes and the things on there, we're making it simpler and simpler. So right now, the site is being reworked. It's being rebuilt. There's not a whole lot there. But I'm adding content from my years of study and everything that I've done, because what I see is all these other people that are offering education stuff, which are very intelligent people that have a lot of experiences. However, it's very convoluted, and there isn't a 1, 2, 3, 4 step process to attack the root cause. It's all about let me sell you my legal prowess so that we can put a Band-Aid on this, right? Or that, or do this or that. Some people are offering things for free. There are people that are doing okay financially. I don't want anybody to believe that I've tapped into my hidden account. I haven't done that in a sense of, and I don't think anybody should or can tap that account in a sense of liquidation. If you try to liquidate any of the value in those securities, you're probably going to go to jail, because you don't have the authority to do that. You have to appoint the trustees to do those particular maneuvers. For those of you that even understand what I'm talking about, a lot of people are like, what in the hell is he talking about? So yeah, I will be offering more on the website, privateestatetrust.org. I do consultations and speak with people privately. Everything has to be done privately. I have a NDA set up that you cannot get off the homepage without subscribing to the NDA. And I do hope that you honor that NDA once you do sign it, because I will enforce it if I have to. That's why it's there. You can't go out in the public and preach about being private and then turn around and put everything in the public. It doesn't work that way. It has to be private. So, you know, there is an answer. It's just going to take people coming together to do it, and not, you know, everybody doing separate things to try to put out fires here, there, and everywhere, because putting out fires doesn't work. So I will be probably posting some things here on YouTube. I know that a lot of people are leaving some of these platforms, although from my research into the new platforms, they're all hooked into the same thing. If you guys want to know if the platform is secure or not in terms of your private information, just read its terms and conditions. You know, if they're under any state or federal law, or they're under any obligation to give their information over to law enforcement, it's not private. It'll never be private. You'll always be you'll always be subject to having your shit sold out. So for people jumping to the MeWe's and the, you know, Parler and all that stuff, you know, it's not what it appears to be. All you have to do, again, is read the terms and conditions. You know, once you read the terms and conditions, just look for what information they can gather from you that becomes theirs, and then look for any clause that states that they have to turn that information over to law enforcement if necessary. That's it. That's all you need to see. If you see that anywhere in their terms and conditions, it's not a free site that's not monitored, that's not going to sell your information out. So for everybody jumping to all these other sites, just be careful, you know, where you go. So again, I've helped a lot of people. I still help people. I took this on to, you know, expand our consciousness, to help people. I never expected to not do what I was doing prior to this, which was carpentry for 20 some years. And then in 2013, that all changed by divine intervention. I did not make a conscious effort to, you know, go into this to support myself and create what some people think is a business out of it. So it's been an interesting ride. I got a lot of people, a lot of relief, but not the way that a lot of these other people are doing it. I've always done my own thing, and I've always been told that, you know, along the way, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. You don't know what you're talking about. That's not going to work. But yet every time it worked. So you know, I stick to my guns. I stick to my divine guidance, and I hope to help people more and more, and to bring this forward as a solution, because we don't have a lot of time. You know, these guys are getting ready to reset everything and revalue everything, and that is nothing more than another entrapment. You know, and I've got even family members that just don't believe that. They believe it's the Holy Grail. They're going to revalue things. They're going to reset stuff, and everybody's going to just be happy. And, you know, all of the dark is going to go away from the earth. It's not going to happen. You know, the revalue is your next trap. You know, just read the Bible, read Revelation. It tells you how this whole thing's going to go down. So anyway, I figured I would do my little PSA and offer some of my perspective on these things and what we can possibly do to unwind it. But again, I'm not going to offer details out in the open in public here. A lot of the stuff is behind the REM private management website at privateestatetrust.org. And people are kind of signing up to join together to do certain moves. And it's a big effort and it takes a lot of time, and we're putting a lot of things together. So anyhow, that's about it. I think a half an hour is too long. So everybody have a great day. I know it's Thanksgiving here, which is again another sham, so I don't really buy into that. I'm not going to give thanks for the genocide of millions of natives. But anyhow, enjoy your day, and maybe I'll post something up a little bit later. I'll put together some more things that people can chew on and think about. So have a good day.